Hello, and welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm a death doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today, oh my gosh, it's the end of season 9, you guys. But I have such a great episode for you today. Typically, I try to do a solo episode at the beginning and the end of my seasons, but I did not want to wait. I had some I'm tongue-tied. I'm so excited. I'm tongue-tied. I've had so many great guests over the last few weeks, and this one is no exception. And I was too excited to let this go until next season, so I wanted to go ahead and plop it in here. That said, while I am on my break, which is just 4 weeks, I will be back at the end of August, but you might see some other great stuff in my feed here. I'm part of the Feminist Podcast Collective, which I've mentioned from time to time. We've been talking about doing feed swaps and trailer swaps, things like that. So I might be throwing in some trailers or possibly some full episodes during my break for some of these other amazing shows. So stay tuned for that. I'm gone, but I always come back. Oh, fingers crossed. Let's not jinx myself. It's just 4 weeks, but I will be back. Obviously, I have no intention of stopping now. I've already got people reaching out to me to be on my show. So yeah, as long as I keep getting guests, and as long as I keep getting passionate about talking about death, dying, and grief, which I think I will be forever, you will get to hear from me on this podcast. So again, I'm so excited about this week's episode. I met Adam at the the Collaborative Doula Conference. It's for full spectrum doulas. So it's a conference for birth doulas, death doulas, postpartum doulas, miscarriage doulas, all the transitions of life doulas. And Adam is a death doula up in Ontario, and he specializes in not just men's grief, but men's grief in the blue collar industries, which is so amazing. And he gave a presentation that I was just wrapped. And it's not just because the man has a magnificent beard. So if you're not watching this on YouTube or you're watching the video, you might want to turn that on because Adam has a lovely beard. Anyway, yeah, so I'm very excited for you to hear my conversation with Adam. Before we go in, if you want to support me and this show, you can go to patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. For as little as $1 a month, you can help me in providing pro bono work within my community. I go out, I see clients on occasion. I've done bedside vigil. I have somebody that I do weekly check-ins. There's not a ghost in my room. That chair is not moving on its own. My cat just jumped out of it. Anyway, I do lots of great things within my community for people at no cost because of my Patreon. Limited funds, limited time, but I do like to give back when I can. So if you want to help with that, please go to patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. And yeah, I guess that's all. Let's dive into today's episode with Adam Daviau. One more thing before we start. Sorry, I was having a bit of a technical issue at the beginning of my recording with Adam. There is a slight echo, and I know how obnoxious that is. I am sorry. It does not go on through the entire episode, I promise. It's just for the first couple of minutes, so really big apologies. There's a little weird echoey sound that comes in the beginning. It does go away, and I will be checking all of my equipment. Thank you. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in again this week for another amazing episode of Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula. I am so excited for this week's guest. I have Mr. Adam Daviau, and I had to write down the pronunciation. I want to make sure I got it right. I met Adam last month, as of when we're recording this, up at the Collaborative Doula Conference in London, Ontario. Adam is a death doula in Sudbury, Ontario, and he gave us this absolutely amazing presentation on grief with men. And I just immediately knew I have to have him on my show. So I grabbed him after I said, you're going to be on my podcast, like it or not. So Adam, would you say hello to my guests and tell them just a little, or my guests, my listeners, and tell them a little bit about you and what you do up in Sudbury?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I am a end-of-life doula or death doula up in Sudbury, Ontario. I've done a lot of work, blue-collar type work, and my focus is with men and blue-collar workers. I really, my main focus and my goal is to change the stigma around grief and men,
Mhm.
and I really have a passion for making sure that men are heard. Um, Very often, I feel that uh, we push it aside or we push it down. And in the industries that I've worked in, the mining industry, um, it is a very frequent uh, thing that they don't deal with their grief. So I'm really trying to push to get involved and get men to see that by opening up, you're
Mhm.
not weak.
Mhm.
You're a human being,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you
and
deserve to be heard.
absolutely, wholeheartedly agree. And what really struck me with your presentation is like I've had men on my show before talking about men's grief and their role in this and the whole like toxic masculinity. But there are a lot of men I know personally because I am around a lot of very liberal crowds that are like totally down with being having touch with their feminine side and being okay and open with their grief. But when you come to the blue collar or the very hyper masculine males, it's a very different ball game, and there's that stigma of being vulnerable and being viewed as weak. Would you agree with that?
Well, and a lot of I absolutely agree with that. A lot of that, um, it comes from the fact that we're, when you're in the blue collar world, you're in a more rough and tumble kind of world. It's not like your everyday um, life, and so the the expectation is very uh, I would say is very old school, where you play the role as protector, as you know, breadwinner,
Mhm.
and it's hard to, you don't want to seem weak. You don't want to
Right,
seem that you can't do the job because you have feelings.
right.
And a lot of those blue collar jobs, especially like up here in the mining industry,
Hmm.
it runs in the family.
Right.
So a lot of times, chances are, if you're a miner, your father was a miner, your grandfather was a miner, like, so you end up in a long line of rough and tough men,
Yeah.
and rough and tough old school thinking.
Yeah.
And it's the environment that you're raised in.
Hmm.
And I think that's where it's important to get talking, because just because you were raised in that environment doesn't mean you have to stick to the way that everyone else in your family did it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up mining because I got to hear in your presentation a little bit about your backstory. So I'd love for you to share with my listeners a little bit about how you even got to this field and you got to be so passionate about men's grief because you have a background with mining, correct? Did you?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So yes, I do. So I grew up in a household. So most of my family was in the mining industry. My father, he was, his whole career was spent in the mine. The the tough part was, when I was born, my dad was 42. He was going on 43.
Oh, wow.
He At that point, he had already been in the mines for just over 20 years. And he mined in every industry. So he did uh, gold mining, uh, he did nickel, copper, asbestos, salt,
Ooh.
uranium. So
Oh
you
my
name
God.
it, he mined it. And so by the time I hit 10, he was 52.
Hmm.
My dad was a tired man. Like he had
Yeah.
worked hard. Um, so, after school or when he got home from work, I would ask him to play baseball or catch, or I'd ask him to play street hockey, and he was just frankly too tired. Like, his body was broken.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, what I did is I turned around and uh, like I said in my presentation, I went into his world.
Mhm.
So he had a. I was fortunate enough that at one point my dad had his own mining contracting business, and he owned contracts all over northern Ontario. There's one big mine that he had a lot of contracts at, and of course this was, you know, early or late 80s, early 90s. And so well before a lot of laws were were put out there. So I would
Mhm.
actually bug him to go to the one mine site with him, which was a 4-hour drive from home.
Wow.
Um, and I was 10 years old going onto a mine site, uh, and traveling with my dad in a pickup truck, and he was a chain smoker because again back then that was just a regular thing. People smoked, and in the wintertime you didn't roll down the windows because it was too cold. So, but you know, it, but for me, I was just so happy to be able to spend that time to talk with my dad and
Mhm.
get close to my dad. Um, and it's funny because for the longest time I always said I won't go underground myself.
Right.
I saw what it did to my like
Wow.
to the men in my family. I saw what it did to their bodies. Now mining's a lot healthier now than it was back then,
Mhm.
but you're still um, for 3 years, I did a lot of underground work
Mhm.
in the mines, and yeah,
Oof.
it's still pretty nasty stuff down there.
Yeah.
They try and have as much safety protocols as possible, but you're still breathing in diesel. You're
Mhm.
still in darkness, like especially in the wintertime here. If you're on day shift, a lot of times you're going underground when it's dark, and you come up and it's dark,
Oh,
so you don't see daylight.
right.
um so it can get really tough.
Yeah. That does sound depressing. But so with something like mining and how dangerous it is, there's mining accidents, I'm sure a lot. Maybe,
Yes.
obviously
Yeah.
there's but there's going to be mining accidents. So this is where a lot of that grief with these type of men comes into play, right? Because they see their friends, their coworkers, the people they see every day injured or perhaps killed in a mining accident. And then they've got this grief to deal with among all these other miners.
Yes, and that's one of the big tough parts is, so there if there's an accident, like unfortunately, if there's an accident underground, it's usually a big accident. Like it's not
Right.
something minor. Like yes, there's minor injuries, maybe broken bones, but there are times that there's significant accidents where people um, die, and it's part of the danger. It's part of the reasons why miners get paid so well.
Hmm.
Um, and unfortunately, you don't get to escape it. So, you could be you could be working with a partner and something happens and your partner passes away. Uh, you may be asked to go work in that same area again once your 5 days of grief, your bereavement
Yeah.
is up. They may be asking you to work in that same area.
Right.
Um,
Oh,
so and even if you're not working in that exact same area, you're taking the same cage down. You know, you're you're gonna go right back to a routine
mhm.
where you're used to having your partner that you might have worked with maybe only a year, but or maybe 20.
Mhm.
um, and you have to just snap out and you know like I said in my presentation, for lack of a better term, you have to man up,
Yeah.
and work.
Yeah.
And that's where my fight begins, because I feel that as old school as I am, I we got to stop using man up.
Yes. Thank you.
It's I get the intention and the meaning that people are trying to do with it. However, when we're saying that to men, we're essentially telling them to, stop worrying about your grief, stop worrying about what you're thinking,
Mhm.
and just focus on pushing forward.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, do I feel that there are times that um, we need to man up in a sense? Yes, and where I say yes, there is a point to it. Is you don't want to turn around and end up losing your house or your
Right.
car or your marriage, your relationships, because you allow yourself to get so swept up with the grief
Mhm.
that you lose everything.
Yeah.
You stop caring about the entire world and you just yes. So, when it comes to that, yes, you may have to man up when you're doing your day-to-day work.
Right.
The However, that man up is not a 24-hour thing. It's not 24/7. It's not 365 days a year.
Mhm.
It's you man up to get through what you need
Right.
to 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 make money for your family or for yourself,
Mhm.
and then you give yourself that time to grieve.
Yes.
So whether it's on your lunch break or at the end of your shift, you walk out to your car and you take 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes and you just let it out. uh you have to let it out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I bring that up on this show all the time that it's okay to distract yourself, to put your grief aside for a little while when you have, because we still have to function, right? The rest of the world is still spinning around us and we still have to function and do our job. So that's perfectly okay. But it's when we don't deal with it ever that the problems creep in. So that, which brings me to my next question, because I really appreciated in your presentation when you talked about how to actually talk to these men and get them to express their grief and to show them that it's safe and it's okay and it's actually detrimental to not. So would you mind speaking a little bit to having conversations with men?
uh, Absolutely. So, well, the biggest thing when you're dealing with men or blue collar workers, they're the type of individuals who they don't want to sit across from a table from you. They don't want to, they don't want to stare into your eyes and have that conversation,
Hmm.
because it feels too clinical. It feels too, it puts them in a feeling of weakness. Like, oh, I'm only talking to you because I'm weak. And that's not how we want to approach that. One of the best ways that I find is approaching men and getting them to open up by doing stuff in places that they consider their safe haven.
Okay.
Uh, so, if I know a guy that likes to tinker on his car, hey man, let's go to the garage. Let's have the chat out there. Let's you know and it doesn't have to start off as a grief talk right away.
Mhm.
You go out there, you start working, and instead of asking about their grief, let them know that, hey man, I've got your back if you ever, you know if there's anything ever bugging you.
Yeah.
Ask them if their dad passed away. Ask them about their dad.
Right.
Hey, what kind of dad was he? Like, what was he into? Ask those questions where they'll open up and they'll start talking about that person.
Hmm.
And I almost guarantee you that is where it's going to lead. It will naturally lead in the direction that it needs to, where that person will feel comfortable and at the end of it, happy that they got to release some of it.
Yeah.
Their Men generally don't want to story tell, so they're not. they're not going to want to sit there and be like, hey, so this is what happened to my dad, A to Z.
Right.
Uh, they're going to want, they're going to want to talk about their dad. Like, they're going to want to say, yeah, my dad was a great guy. Like, you should have seen the knowledge that man had on cars, right? Like, they're going to get into that. That's what they want to talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's really important that we don't put down men or blue collar workers for wanting to dive into work or dive into projects, because you know what, at the end of the day, that's what they're doing to help themselves grieve. We want to explain to them that yes, you still need, depending on how they're taking care of themselves,
Mhm.
you want to help them uh, basically self-care. So if they are diving into work, yeah, hey man, it's fine that you dive into work,
Yeah.
but still take the time for yourself. It doesn't have to be with anybody around you. You could
Yeah.
do it on your own, but still take the time to let it out.
Mhm.
Um, like I said in my talk, one of the big issues is when we hold it in. The only real emotion that we have, that if we decide to close down our grief, the only real emotion that comes out of that is anger.
Yep.
So we shut it down, and then anger comes out. And if the anger doesn't come out right away, a lot of times we get into substance abuse.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, like, again, I've talked to many people who are like, "Oh, my dad never cried a day in his life," and then you go, "Oh yeah," and then you talk and you'd be like, "Oh, did he ever drink?" "Oh yeah, like he could drink a case of beer every day."
Mhm.
Well, that's why he wasn't crying, because
Right.
he was drinking a case of beer to forget.
Yeah.
So he wasn't. Doesn't mean that he was not doing it in a way that was positive for A, his health, or
Mhm.
B, um, his bank account, C, his family around him, right? Because
Mhm.
you tend, when you turn to substances, you're not only forgetting that grief,
Mhm.
but you're forgetting to live in the moment. You're
Mhm.
forgetting to
Yeah.
live with your family. You're forgetting to live and experience the beauty of life that's in front of us
Mhm.
every day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing all that. And that's so, so, so very true. So, um, I forget if it was in your talk or the panel that was on the last day with all men, where it was mentioned that the first victims of the patriarchy are young boys, right? And I feel like that's where
Yes.
okay, that's where we need to start, is with our young boys, like teaching them that having emotions is okay, and expressing grief and expressing, in a constructive way is okay. So, would you speak to a little bit about that?
Yeah. So myself, I again, I am quite old school in the sense that I believe sports help with emotional regulation.
Mhm.
Um, I know I've had many people argue with me against that, but the way I see it is, we don't teach our children proper emotional support for themselves.
Mhm.
So, as the example in the with the panel, um, coaching youth football, you
Mhm.
know, we lost. We were number one. We lost in the semifinals. Then we lost in the consolation game,
Mhm.
and so the kids went from being first in the league to last
Yeah.
in all of 2 weeks. Parents were super upset. Yes, it was a blown call by the ref, but the parents were upset. They wanted to pull their kids from football, and I had to gather them, because it was like, look, this is what they need, because the kids need to learn how to regulate themselves, learn
Mhm.
how to deal with upset, learn how to deal with not being the best,
Yeah.
uh, you know, because that's what's going to help them grow in the future. They're going to learn how to handle
Mm-hmm.
losses. They're going to learn how to handle wins, because the world is a very unfair place.
Mm-hmm.
So for people to not prepare their children by not allowing them to feel it, and I think that's a big problem that we're running into nowadays, is a
Yes.
lot of parents coddle their children, and they don't want their children to get hurt, so they don't say no. They don't, you know, if they lose, you often hear, like if they do play sports and they lose, you often hear parents say, oh, don't worry, that doesn't matter. Well, no, it does matter. And losing sucks,
Yeah.
but you know what? You have to learn how to deal with it,
Yeah.
because you're not going to be a winner every day of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not how life is meant
Yeah.
to be. So I really feel that parents need to start, you know, turn around and ask, how is that making you feel right now?
Yes.
Well, it really sucks. And they're going to be crying. It sucks, this and that. Okay. Well, if you don't want that to happen again, let's practice. Let's get better.
Mm-hmm.
And let's use that emotion for the better, not, oh, just brush it off. Don't worry about it. It doesn't mean anything. You're not going to remember when you're an adult. Well, that's not, he will remember when he's an adult. Well, he probably won't remember that. But then when he's an adult and he's coming into your house and he's throwing a tantrum at 26 years old because someone told him he's not getting the job promotion, and he's punching holes in the walls, and you're going, why are you reacting like this? Well, you never taught him how to regulate it and how to handle it and how to turn it inward for the better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I totally agree. I love that, and I appreciate the aspect of, like, it's we I don't have children, so I can't claim to know what it's like, but you want to protect your children, right? And we always want to protect people from the big emotions. Like grief sucks, it's hard, it's sad. You don't
Yep.
want people to feel sad. That's why you're like, Shh, don't feel sad. No, feel sad because this sucks. Something bad
Yeah.
happened. You're allowed to be
Yeah.
sad. Yeah.
Exactly. Um,
Yeah.
and it's funny too, because it's just like when I was at the conference, I was staying at my niece's house, and on my last day, before I came back north, my sister was visiting, and she was holding my great niece, who's 5, and we were talking, and we were talking about death, and we were talking about what I was doing. And my sister was like, oh, this is a little morbid. Maybe we should change the topic. And it's like,
Nope.
no, like, let's normalize it, because death is not a bad thing. Death is not a negative thing.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I push the most is we need to bring back the joy and the dignity to those who are dying, and we need to celebrate death, because death is not something to run away from and be scared of. And when people start recognizing that death isn't something to be afraid of, and
Mhm.
it's just another chapter in our lives, that's when they learn to live. And that's when they learn to have fun in life.
Ah, I love talking to other death doulas. You guys, we get it. We get it. So
Yeah,
I totally
absolutely.
understand. So as we wrap up, I want to ask one more big question. So for any of my listeners who may be a sister, a wife, or a coworker, or somebody to a man who might be experiencing loss, what advice would you give them on showing that they're a safe space and then giving them space to open up?
Okay, so the first thing is, don't tell them you're a safe space.
Thank you.
Because they will see that as a sign of weakness.
Yep.
They'll
Yep.
be like, why do I need a safe space? Like,
Right.
what you see me as someone who's weak, and then that's where the anger might come up.
Yep.
Um, for me, what the best way is, you know, let them know that you're there. Start conversations. You know, if it's their dad that they've lost, ask about him. how was he when you were a kid? I have the try and have the conversations that you've never had before about that person. Um, and at the end of the day, you know, just ask them hey, what can I do to be there for you?
Yeah.
And it's taking it away from that, hey, I'm a safe space, to, you know, I'm here.
Hmm.
I see you, I recognize it, but you tell me what you need,
Yeah.
and I'll be whatever you need me to be. Um, and then that way they will turn and use you in the way that uh, they perceive is best for them.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for mentioning that, don't tell them I'm a safe space. Like, we have such beautiful flowery language in our line of work that we all use with each other, right? But to the
Yes.
general population, they hear things like that and they get turned off real quick. So I really
Well,
appreciate that.
it's part of it is because it sounds too clinical. It sounds too in a book, you know,
Hmm.
and especially when you think about the the general generations that we typically deal with, uh, the baby boomers.
Yep.
You look at that generation, they still have that old school mentality
Yep.
and old verbiage.
Yep.
They don't understand, or they don't like the
Yep.
softness. So
Yep.
they don't even want you talking to them that way, because they don't they just feel it's too soft. It's one of those, and I'm sure you've heard it. I've heard it lots from older clients, is just don't beat around the bush.
Yeah.
Just give it to me straight. I
Mhm.
want to hear facts, and I want to hear actuals. I don't want to hear anything. Don't soften it because
Yeah.
you think I'm too weak to take what you have to say.
Perfect. Well said. Thank you. So I have a little tradition on my show. When I get towards the end of the episode, I'm going to pull a random card from the death deck. I'm sure you're familiar with the death deck. So
Yes.
I like to pull a random card out, as you can see, totally random. And I'm going to read it, and then you will answer it. And then fair's fair, I'll answer it too. So, oh, I think we both know this one. Would you consider going old school and having a funeral in your home?
Absolutely. And I will one up that. Uh,
Ooh.
Funeral in my home, and I would prefer to have a live funeral. If I'm diagnosed with something, if I have terminal illness, I want a live funeral, because I want people to say the nice things to my face, and that way I could also die with a smile, because I will know how many people have enjoyed me throughout their lives.
Yes, you could not have said it better. I wholeheartedly 100% agree. I had a client I worked with at the end of last year who had a living funeral for herself, and it was amazing. I would recommend everybody do that if you have the opportunity. So, and I'm the same way, 100%. I would absolutely do a home funeral for me, for any of my family members, any of my clients. I'm all for it. So,
Unless there's a power outage, then
well, yeah. 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 Adam, this has been amazing. I'm going to give you a couple minutes here. Please tell my listeners where they can find you, how they can reach out to you, and anything else you want to share.
all right. So I've got my website, beautifulexistencedoulas.com. And then I'm also on Facebook, Beautiful Existence Doulas, and on Instagram. You can contact me on any of those platforms. I monitor them regularly. I may not post as regular as I should, but I do monitor them completely regularly. So if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to reach out and see if I may be available for a man in your life that is going through grief, definitely reach out.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope somebody takes advantage of that because I think you have a beautiful gift, and I'm just happy to have known you.
Well, thank you so much.
All
And
right.
thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for having me.
Oh, yeah. Happy to. All right. Thank you. All right. Another huge thank you. Thank you, Adam. It was so lovely chatting with you at the conference, on this podcast, before and after our recording. You were just a lovely human being. I love what you do. If you can check out Adam's website, I will put it in the description down below. Go check out his stuff. If you're in Ontario and you have needs, heck, if you're not, I'm sure he'd be willing to talk to you anyway. Please reach out to Adam. He's a fantastic human being. And that's all for season 9, you guys. I will be back in 4 weeks, promise. In 3, you'll get a trailer when I have a better idea of who I'm gonna have and what I'm gonna be talking about in season 10. Which, holy cow, I've been at this podcast for how many years now? 4? I've been at this podcast for 4 years. I'm up to darn near 200 episodes. And I can't believe it. I thought maybe I would do this for a couple years and get bored with it, but here we are. I have, again, no intention of stopping. But thank you all. If there weren't for you listeners listening, I would have no reason to. I would probably still do it, but man, it would be pointless. But thank you to all my listeners. I seriously, just knowing that you're listening and the ones that I hear from, you make all of this worthwhile. I don't make a penny on this podcast. I really don't. I make $0. I don't have ad revenue. I don't have any sponsors, at least not yet. If I get one, that'd be nice, but I continue to do it because of people like you. So thank you so much. If you have any feedback on the show, if you want to reach out to me to be on the show, or just say hi and tell me you're listening, I would love that. It's kind of quiet sometimes over here with just me and the microphone. So you can go to nikkithedeathdoula.com. You can reach out to me. I have a subpage there for this podcast. You can get merch there too. I've got t-shirts, stickers, I've got journals. Please go check that out. And that's all. Thank you so much for tuning in this season. I'll see you all in 4 weeks. But hey, remember, as always, your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. And grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC.